Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show.
Snowpiercer is the Netflix HBO show about the Snowpiercer. I mean, you know what this is about, you click the thumbnail, you watch my show, it's fine. But before I get started on the video proper, let's just mention quickly that Netflix, and I presume every other channel, decided to drop both the 9th and the 10th episodes on the same day. Not sure why, I do have a theory, stay to the end for that, but meanwhile, let's get into the recap of episode 9. The Train Required Blood. And this picks up a couple of hours after the last time we saw everything, and the repercussions of the big civil war, which led to everyone kind of locking themselves away and licking their wounds, with the upside train side executing prisoners and planning to gas their way to victory, potentially killing off some or all of the back half of the people in the train. But that's only if they can't get Leighton to surrender. So Pike goes back and tells him it straight, give up or everyone dies. And by the way, I'm now on their side because, yeah, clean sheets and tasty food. And Leighton finds out that Zara's got a baby in her, and he's all about, yeah, we definitely need to give up because I don't want my baby to die. And luckily, Melanie's managed to escape and gotten through to the tail, with a little bit of help from Javi, somehow. And she tells him that there's another way that they can win. Using an emergency radio, they managed to make plans with the engine to decouple and lose a few of the cars, the ones that all the jackboots are in. And she also agrees to let Leighton just take over and run the train, which is just, wow, I mean, that's an idea and a half. But meanwhile, LJ convinces her parents that they need to be at the front when the victory happens because she can see that Ruth and Nolan are about to make a power play to be king and queen of the train. So Leighton signs the treaty in the schoolroom car, and then he gets led away, and him and Roche try to overpower Nolan and his dudes, which goes a bit badly, but in a moment of unbelievable convenience, Big Boy and the last Aussie rock up and save them. And Leighton gets to the separation junction but finds a load of prisoners on the other side. But there's no time to save them, so he has to cut them off with the rest of the cars, sending everyone in those cars to a freezy death, and then reconnecting the train without them. So what did I think? Well, decoupling the train idea was actually kind of neat, and I liked that concept. It's a good solution to a big problem, and it answered the question that I've had since early on as to why the last episode was going to be called 99 Cars Long, and how we'd end up in that situation. And I also liked the amount of power plays and politics going on. I mean, this isn't Game of Thrones, but it's good to see vying groups in politics. And the people playing considerable thought to what was actually going to happen, which makes sense. Or how the rich couples are so away with it that they're commemorating the end and getting photos taken because they're basically idiots and they don't understand the reality of what's happening around them. And it fits with their kind of dumbass personalities and the over-entitled mindset completely. And it made them dying horribly surrounded by guards even better. If they're actually dead, which I'll get into later. There's also a nice wee side character moment with things like, you know, the gun set up with the teacher. Presumably that's going to be for next week, unless that was the gun that Roach ended up with, unless I missed something, but that didn't seem very clear. And there was wee touches like how the strawberry garden's been ransacked, which looked like a bit of an OTT thing, but fair enough, it got the point across in that quick shot. Or like the hanky scene, or how bonkers and silly it was that Leighton just kind of looked bemused by the whole business of the photographs. Or the bit about Santi and his wee cross and him forgiving and like praying for Melanie when she's being taken away to be executed. Just nice little moments. But this is Snowpiercer, so there's a laundry list of actual issues this week. So, I mean, let's start small and work our way up. Because some of them were just ugly moments, like Big Boy's charge, where it just looked really bad. It looked like the machine wasn't moving slow enough to propel him forward, like on that transit cart. It made his Superman-style leap look absolutely stupid. Or again, every example of when David Diggs just showed that he can't really act, and had all these gormless facial expressions where he's mugging it up like he's a kid's TV show presenter. Or how, you know, he couldn't find the keys on the only guard in the room and spent so much time faffing around. It was a bit like that scene a few episodes back when Josie kept looking on the shelves and through papers instead of just opening up drawers, because the show's trying to drag a scene out longer than it needs to be. Or how Leighton, the cop, is crap at telling a kid that their brother died. I mean, he's a cop. If anyone has training in this kind of thing, it's probably him. Or just everybody on Snowpiercer being a complete idiot, and the writers seem to assume that the audience is as well, because like the whole bit with Pike, who apparently has zero guile and is just like, yeah, here's the offer, by the way, I'm no longer on your side because cake, lol. Also logistic issues, like how did Pike even get through the barriers? They've already said they sealed the doors, but he just magically got through somehow. And Javi, how did he get up and down the train so fast? Because we saw him 1 minute right at the front. No, the next minute he's down near the middle, wearing like this uniform, and it's helping Melanie escape. It just didn't make any sense. I mean, it made more sense if that was Jinju. But no, apparently him and Jinju managed to bribe people. I mean, how much time is passing between scenes? We've no idea, because we're full sort of Game of Thrones levels of people teleporting around locations and the passage of time being completely vague. And none of it stops the fact that it feels like the show's going out of its way to tie everything up in neat wee bows. I mean, a classic example of a show that doesn't care whether its plot makes any sense as long as things happen and it looks and sounds exciting. And even if it makes no sense and it's all ridiculous, as long as it happens, then other things later can happen that don't make sense as well. I mean, it's just bad writing. And think about this for just 1 second. This train has just had a major meltdown because people found out that Wilfred is dead. And this leads to a massive amount of people feeling a sort of a, oh my god, God is dead sort of feeling, and hopelessness and betrayal. And Melanie thinks the best plan here is to then just step back and go, yeah, we're just going to put this Taily in charge. I mean, sure, the show hasn't really managed to establish much of a realistic infrastructure in the Snowpiercer. It's just Melanie at the top doing 100 jobs and everyone else kind of below her and not being very bright. But you'd have to think at some point there's going to be other people who might be suited better to doing this than maybe this one bad detective, who frankly doesn't come across as being that bright outside of solving murder mysteries. Or the fact that maybe people in third might actually, in second, might not actually want Leighton in charge, because who the hell is Leighton? People don't actually know him that much outside of the tale. And all of this is in the face of Nolan and Ruth, and the Forquestersons or whatever they're called, all having their big rush for power. It's just... And the finale. Well, as I said right at the start, I was first kind of surprised that they dropped both episodes at once. But when I got to the end of this episode, I realised why that probably is. And my guess is basically it's because they've tied up so much of the plot in this episode that they reasoned that people wouldn't bother watching next week if they just... I mean, especially considering that they were putting out adverts for episode 10 before this episode even aired. I mean, honestly, literally, there was an advert that had like a scene from next week in it that I saw, which kind of meant everything in this episode made no sense.
Listen to this.
Music.
It's coming from the northwest. Outside.
Outside. Jesus.
But yeah, so I mean, having seen that, if it wasn't on the same week, would you have bothered watching next week? And it's a kind of a weird way to come near the end of a season. I can't really understand who thought this was a good idea. But I imagine some of that will be explained next week. So till next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions. And a special thanks to everybody listening, and especially my patrons, and most especially to Michelle Forbes and Judith Coloma, my top tier patrons. Thank you everybody. Everybody stay safe. Cheerio.